All right, guys, so this is our last one before Thanksgiving. It's another one about solving systems of equations. Now, we've been using graphing to find solutions, and today we're going to use something called substitution. Essentially, what that means is we're going to be given two equations. We're going to solve one of them for one of the variables, and then plug that in for that variable in the other equation. It sounds pretty rough, but it's really not that bad. So what we're going to do on the first one is we're going to look at the two equations. We've got y equals 3x and x plus y equals 8. And we want to solve one of those for a variable. Now this one's pretty easy because if we look, we have y equals 3x. That's a good sign that we need to use that one because it's already solved for a variable. So it says in our first column, solve for a single variable. Well, we're lucky there. We already have. It's y equals 3x. Now what we're going to do is on the second column, it says substitute and solve. Well, the equation that we didn't solve is x plus y equals 8. Well, now we know what y is. Y is 3x. So what I'm going to do is plug that 3x in for y. So I'm going to have x plus, and I'm going to put it in parentheses because it may be important later, y equals 3x equals 8. Now I have all x's in my equation, so I can actually solve it for x. So x plus 3x equals 8. Now, the reason I put in parentheses because if this were a negative and it were more complex, we might need to distribute. Now, I can combine like terms because both of these have x's. So x plus 3x is 4x equals 8. Now I can divide both sides by 4. I get x equals 2. So now we know what x is. Now what we can do is use that x to find the other solution. So what we do is we take either of our equations, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to use the y equals 3x because it'll be the easiest. And now I know what x is, so I'm going to plug it in. So I have y equals 3 times 2, so that means y equals 6. So now I have my x and my y, so I have a solution of x is 2, y is 6. Now again, just like when we graphed it, we could plug those points back in and make sure they work. We do know it works in y equals 3x because that's how we just solved for. But if we plug 2 in for x and 6 in for y in the other equation, you get 2 plus 6, and yes, that does equal 8. So our answer is correct. So what you're going to do is find an equation, solve it for a variable, plug that into the other equation, solve for a variable, and then plug that back in. I know it's several steps, but if you'll use these boxes to help you, it'll probably go pretty well. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Now, number 2, we have 2x plus y equals 9 and x plus 4y equals 1. This one, it doesn't have one that's solved for a variable, but if I look at the 2x plus y equals 9, it looks like it would be just a quick one step. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for y in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my equation. 2x plus y equals 9. And now the only thing I have to do to get y by itself is subtract my 2x from both sides. That cancels out the x's, leaves me y equals, which is what we want. I'm going to write my x's first, negative 2x and plus 9. So now we've solved for y. Now we can mess with our other equation. Our other equation, x plus 4y equals 1. And we know what y is, so we're going to plug that whole equation in for y. So now instead of x plus 4y, I'm going to have x plus in 4 times whatever y is, which is negative 2x plus 9, and that equals 1. Now we have to do a little distribution to get our next step. The x stays the same. Then we have 4 times negative 2x is minus 8x. We have 4 times positive 9, which is 36, and that equals 1. I've got some like terms I can combine. I have 1x minus 8x, which gives me negative 7x, plus 36 equals 1. Now I need to get my x's by themselves, so I'm going to subtract that 36 from both sides. I get negative 7x equals negative 35. And then the last step to solve for x is divide by the negative 7. And I get x is equal to positive 5. So now I know my x value. Now we'll go in and plug our x value into one of our equations. You can use any of your equations, but since we already solved one for y, it'll probably just be easier to use that one. The one we solved for y equaled negative 2x plus 9. But now I know what x is. X is positive 5, so I'm going to plug it back in. I get y equals negative 2 times 5 plus 9. That gives me y equals negative 10 plus 9. So y equals negative 1. So we have our x, we have our y. I can write out my solution. My x value is 5. Why did I write negative 7 up there, guys? You got to catch me there. Sorry about that. That's negative 1. I don't know where I got negative 7 from. So we have our x value is 5. Our y value is negative 1. Sorry about that on that one. Now, again, we can plug these back in to check. I'll leave that up to you. But it is a good idea to check your solutions. All right, guys, let's go to the last one. So this time I've got A's and B's, but don't let that bother you, okay? It's the exact same thing. We're just going to be, I mean, you could change them to X and Y almost if you wanted to. A and B are just the same as X and Y. So I want to look at my equations. I've got 2A minus B equals 1 and 5A minus 3B equals 0. It looks like the top equation is probably going to be the easiest to solve for B. We could do the bottom one also, but no matter what we did, if we solve for A or B, we're going to be dividing, and it could give us some pretty nasty fractions. It's always better to just solve for the variable that's already sorted by itself. So I'm going to start with 2A minus B equals 1, and I'm going to subtract my 2A to the other side. Now I've got negative B is equal to negative 2A minus, or plus 1. Now I can't have negative b, so I'm going to divide every piece by negative 1. You could also multiply every piece by negative 1. And I get b equals positive 2a minus 1. So now I've solved for a, or for b. Now we'll take our other equation, and we're going to plug in what we found for b for b. Our original equation was 5a minus 3b equals 0. So I'm going to rewrite it by replacing b. I have 5a minus 3 times 2a minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to go ahead and distribute my 3. I get 5a minus 6a plus 3 equals 0. I can combine my like terms here. 5a minus 6a gives me negative a plus 3 equals 0. Now I can subtract my 3 to the other side, and you get negative a equals negative 3. But again, we don't want negative a, we want positive a, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1, and I get my answer is a equals 3. So now we can go back to the equation we solved for in the first one. We got b equals 2a minus 1, b equals 2a minus 1, and I know what a is, so I'm going to plug it back in. So I get b equals 2 times 3 minus 1, which is b equals 6 minus 1, which gives us the b equals 5. So now I've got my a and b, so I'm going to have my solution. I got a is 3 and b is 5. Let's see if I can write that well. All right, guys, so that's just a quick run through. If you have any more questions, please come on in and ask in class. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving.